when buying a drone, there's a few things to consider. And for me, I travel a lot, so I could either go with the Mavic Mini or I could go with the Mavic Air series. I could go with the Pro, but it gets a little bit too much for my needs in terms of size and even functionality. So I go with the Air. So the best drone for you obviously depends on your use case. And for me, I landed somewhere in the middle with the Mavic Air, and I've had the Air 1 and Air 2. Now, the Air 2 I had for 2 years, but it was starting to become dated in some of the features, even though I absolutely love the drone and I even use it professionally. But it got to the point where I outgrew the Air 2 and it was on to something new. So one day before my trip to Indonesia, I found for $700 on Marketplace a new drone that was going to change the way I create. Enter the Mavic Air 2S. So I take it to Indonesia, I'm all excited, and one of the first flights ever in a cave, in a dark cave, I crash it, which is a perfect segue to the cons of the Mavic Air 2S. So number one, yes, it was user error 100%, but I will say that the most common way to crash the Air 2, the Air 2S, they don't have side sensors on them, so flying sideways, and I crashed mine directly into this rock. I thought I was done for the entire trip. My heart skipped a beat just for a second, but it saved itself, oddly enough. So what ended up happening was the leg was folding, and as the props, the other three were going up, I guess the leg kicked back out and it kind of saved itself. So a word of caution for those flying the drone sideways, it does not have side sensors. The only other gripe I have with the Mavic Air 2S is the battery life. And I don't mean in air flight time, because if you buy the Fly More combo, I think having 3 batteries is certainly enough to get you through the day. What I mean is after those batteries are charged and they're being stored, say you're taking a flight somewhere to Indonesia, these batteries have a tendency to slowly deplete over time. So by the time you put them in your drone after 3, 4, 5 days of they were fully charged, but now I only have 60% on each battery. So the longevity is not good for storage. So now let's get to the reason why I picked up the 2S over the 2, or as an upgrade anyways. So going to Indonesia, I knew this is going to be footage of a lifetime, and I'd probably never do this trip again to Java Island. So I wanted to make sure that I had the best quality video, and I found that the 2S, though it looks the same, uses the same batteries, I actually found that it was a pretty good upgrade in terms of hardware. And what I mean by that is it now has a 1-inch sensor instead of the previous 1/2-inch sensor. And why is that important? Well, low light performance. And a perfect example of that is the cave that I was shooting in. So you get a lot clearer of an image, higher quality with less noise. And that's what I love about it. So I'm super happy I picked it up for that. And the second major upgrade of the Mavic Air 2S for me was there was a big shift from the 2 being 8-bit color to the 2S being 10-bit color. And for me, I do heavy grades and I like playing around with colors and grading and post. So for me, that was super important in getting better log, 1, and then higher 10-bit color to play with in post. The night before we were about to embark on this week-long adventure together, we delegated roles as a team. And as the creative team, I ended up somehow being the drone pilot. So I was getting footage for maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 other people as we were sharing all of the footage. So this became very important that at each location, I was getting the best possible footage. And yes, this was a little bit nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I knew I could do it. And I knew now that I had the Mavic Air 2S to get the job done. And I ended up shooting most of the footage in 5.4K at 30 frames per second. The reason I did this was to future-proof everyone in that footage. So 5.4K, you have the ability to crop and use dynamic post options in editing. And I also shot it at 30 for just the ability to get that slow 80% slowdown on a 24 frames per second timeline. So I guess there's actually 3 major upgrades I loved. The 10-bit color, I also liked the 5K option, and then I also liked that it was a bigger sensor. All right, let's bring this to a close. Do you need to go out and buy the Mavic Air 2S? Well, I went over the pros and cons, and if these pros aren't an absolute necessity for you, I would say it's probably best to find a cheap deal on the Mavic Air 2. If you don't need that low light sensor, like a bigger sensor, if you don't color grade your footage or even shoot in log, well, this isn't going to be a game changer for you like it is for me. Do you need higher resolutions like shooting in 5K, or is 4K completely fine for you? Or is the Air even the best option for you because you do need a license to fly the Air and Pro series? Maybe you're looking at the Mini because you're just casually looking into this. And in that case, I would definitely recommend the Mini Pro 3. So there's a lot to dissect here when thinking about the best Mavic drone for you to pick up. But I will say that for my use case and for a lot of people, the Mavic Air 2S is enough. And yes, I'm tempted with this summer in 2023, the Mavic Air 3 is coming out. It's going to have 2 cameras. It's going to be able to probably shoot 6K. But I honestly think I'm just going to stick with this guy. I already have the extra batteries, it's more than capable, and I'm comfortable on any trip with the footage I'll get out of this. I even upload to Blackbox, which is a service that allows you to get paid for your stock drone footage. So my conclusion is, if you're somewhere on your creative journey that aligns with me in terms of your experience, I've been shooting with drones for about 6 years now, maybe the 2S is right for you, but do you even travel? You have to ask yourself all these questions, but I will say it certainly holds up and easily will for the coming year or maybe even 2. Thanks so much for stopping by. I appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.